My name is Barbara Rowan. I'm a creative writer. I am retired. I am a wife. I'm a mother of two, and I'm a grandmother of two. I write for my grandchildren and other children. My first story is Sammy the Squirrel. Sammy and his other squirrel friends always played in the trees in back of Mason and Morgan's house. Sometimes Sammy would hop on the fence and look at the dogs. He was a brave squirrel. None of the other squirrels would try that. When Mason was not quite 1 year old, he would be sitting in his high chair and see Sammy. He soon started to ask to see Sammy by saying squirrel. He was always happy to see Sammy and his friends running through the trees. He was especially happy when Sammy sat on the fence to look at the dogs. When Mason's little sister was about one, he told her about the squirrels. Sammy didn't have a name yet. She liked to watch the squirrels too. Sammy and his friends continued to climb and chase each other through the trees. Only brave Sammy would sit on the fence. Well, this happened year after year for almost 7 years, running and playing in the trees and looking at the dogs. Then something happened. The dogs got old and sick. They had to move where they could be taken care of by the vets and their helpers. Sammy didn't know where the dogs were. Remember, Sammy is a brave squirrel. He climbed down into the yard. He ran over to the patio wall. He climbed on the wall and ran from one side to the other. He didn't see the dogs. He decided to look in the window. He didn't see any dogs, but he did see Morgan and Mason. He looked once, he looked twice, and hopped off and ran towards the children's swings and slide. All of a sudden, Sammy was sitting on the swing, jumping from one to the other. The next thing Mason and Morgan saw him doing was something only naughty boys or girls do. He was climbing up the slide. Morgan said, "Doesn't he know there are steps to climb up?" The next thing Mason said, "He's sliding down now." Sammy did this a few times. He seemed to smile each time he came down the slide. Soon he scampered to the top of the fence. He looked in the trees for his friends. Morgan and Mason wondered if he was telling them about the dogs and the fun he had on the swings and slide that day. They haven't seen Sammy lately. With school and all their fun activities on weekends, they have been busy. This past Saturday, Morgan had her 4th birthday party. She thought he might show up since there was going to be a moon bounce and a pony ride. She knew how brave Sammy was and how much fun he had on the swing and slide. Maybe he just enjoyed everything from the trees. And my second story is The Adventures of the Butterflies. In May, Mason received the eggs for raising his own butterflies. With his mother's help, he placed them in the container and kept them out of the direct sunlight. The eggs opened and he and his sister Morgan could see tiny little worm-like forms eating the leaves. That he placed inside the butterfly container he received for Easter. In about a week, they changed to 5 chrysalis. He could hardly wait for the butterflies to hatch, which took another week. Then his mother helped, and they added sugar water in a dish and food that they received with the butterfly pit. They needed to be released soon, so Mason decided to bring them to his grandmother's house at the shore. He and Morgan called their friends to come over and see the release. All summer long, Mason and Morgan saw butterflies near his grandmother's house and at the beach. They always thought they were Mason's. I forgot to tell you, Mason is only 4 years old and Morgan is not yet 2. Well, the other day, as Mason and Morgan's grandmother was looking out over her plants, a strange thing happened. Many butterflies came around her, and she was sure they were saying, "Tell Mason and Morgan goodbye." "We are leaving for our flight to Mexico." Mason and Morgan's grandmother told them about the butterflies. They were so glad they had stopped to say goodbye. I am sure Mason will always remember his butterflies and tell his friends about them, especially about the part saying goodbye. And my next story is the true story of Red Riding Hood. "I am Wolf John," the Red Riding Hood said, tricked her. Well, here is the true story. Red, as I called her, was sent to her grandmother's house with a basket of food. Remember, there were no telephones in those days. People just went to visit relatives whenever they needed to see them. Well, Red went off into the woods, but didn't do as her mother had said, go directly to grandmother's. She was watching the birds of many colors, smelling the flowers that grew in the forest. She lost track of the time and was tired and sat down on the rock. That is when I saw her. I said, "Red, what are you sitting on the rock and where are you going?" Red said, "I'm going to grandmother's. I just got tired and thought I would rest." I said, "Red, do you know how late it is getting?" Red said, "I didn't think about it. I better run before it's too late to go." I said, "I'll run beside you so you get there." She said, "Fine, let's go." So we ran to grandmother's and she invited us in, gave us cookies and milk. Grandmother thanked me for getting Red there. Well, when Red got home, her mother wanted to know what took so long. That's when Red made up that ugly story about me. She told the story to her friends and they told it to their families. It got passed down from one family to the next. Soon it was written down in a book. That is probably how you heard it. I'm going to tell you what happened 2 weeks later. Red's mother went to grandmother's house while Red was in school. She was very surprised to find me at grandmother's having milk and cookie. Grandmother and I have become great friends. I stopped by daily and we often talked about our families. Red's mother told the story that Red had told her. We were both upset to hear this. Red's mother said, "When I get home, I'm going to take care of that girl's imagination. I'm going to make her tell the truth to everyone. The next time I send her, she will have to say she is sorry to you, Mr. Wolf." When Red's mother went home, she told Red to tell her friends it was just a fairy tale. By that time, her story had spread all over the world. So please, don't be like Red. Tell the truth.